Hi, friends. This is Sunil Chandy from Christ Church, and this is Food for Thought. And I want to thank you for being with us today. This is a program that we do out of Christ Church, and it's a program that helps us to connect with one another, especially during this time of great challenge for our church community, for the Westerly community, the Stonington community, the national community, and of course the global community. And so this is our way of just touching base, praying with one another, diffusing the pressure, allowing us to know that there are people of great love and light all over the world, and we might not notice it in the midst of our challenge, but this program, like many other things in life, are called to help reorient us towards the light. And so I want to thank you all for joining us. There are at least 9 people who have joined us on this day. We did some publicity around this day because we have a really wonderful guest. I mean, all of our guests, I'm telling you, I have been so very happy. And with all of our guests, they have given me inspiration, especially as a priest going through in the midst of this challenging time. These guests have given me insights and helped me to kind of continue to revel in the joy of relationships. And so today we will not be disappointed because we have a great friend of Christ Church. Actually, I would call him more of a son of Christ Church in that he was raised here. He was brought into ministry from the Catholic Church into the Episcopal Church at Christ Church. And I'm hopefully, and we're having some issues with technology right at this moment, but hopefully he'll be able to come and join us. And I will introduce you in a moment to him and his great work, a body of work, as he has a conversation with us. But until then, I would love to see your comments. I would love to say hello to you and know that and acknowledge that your presence here. So if you would simply say hello, that would be good. And tell me that you're here, and so that you would know that we know that you're here. So nothing yet. So I know that there are people here, but they will come on board. Well, then let me start by introducing you to who I will be bringing on, and that is Bishop Larry Provenzano. Larry has been. Oh, there's Steve. Hey, Steve, how are you doing? Welcome to you. Christy, how are you doing? Hello. Natalie, good afternoon. Thank you for being with us, of course. And Sandra, good afternoon to you. I love that icon of you. Anne and Jan, and thank you for Patty. Patty, thank you. Thank you, Christy, for your strength and guidance. Namaste, Betsy. Thank you for being here. Christy, I will have to tell you, Christy Allardyce just thanked me for my strength and guidance, but I should be thanking her and all of the leaders of our Christ Church. Christy is the director of our Sunday school program, and Betsy was here, and there's also Natalie, who's on the vestry, Betsy Rice, who's on our vestry, our ward. All of these leaders in our church, they have, through this time, shown great strength, and they have guided their committees and their people, buoyed them up with their enthusiasm and with their sense of joy. And it's not always easy, especially when you've got a challenging life and a challenging world. It's hard to keep the light shining, and you could see it. It's happening all around us with not only the COVID crisis, but of course we have this. Recently, we've been having protests throughout the country, and now it's actually throughout the world. There are people at places in Canada that people are protesting, in France, and it's a global situation. People are protesting. And so then we have the COVID crisis, we have protests, we have also, the other day I was listening to my wife, and we were noting that that there were some locusts that were coming from Pakistan into India, and I was thinking, oh my God, will India take this as a national threat from Pakistan, or will they understand that it's natural? But then there are locusts that are hitting Africa. I guess maybe I'm looking at the challenges, and I'm looking at the challenges, and I'm saying, wow, these are biblical proportion challenges, and maybe they are. But I do know that in the midst of it, in all types of challenges, that the only way we're going to be able to get through them is by our faith in God, by our understanding that God is with us. The God that was proclaimed to us through Scripture, the God that we experience in Jesus, is walking with us through these challenges, and that we are walking with each other. And so it's very important, I think, right at this time, to remember to have faith in those two things. Well, and one person who will remind us of that faith is Bishop Provenzano. Bishop Provenzano is the bishop of Long Island, one of the largest dioceses in our Episcopal Church, and we have been graced. We have been graced by his presence here because he grew up here. He was an associate rector and serving with Bishop Jocelyn when Bishop Jocelyn was the rector of this place, and he has been a wonderful friend. He and Jean, his wife, and their family have been a wonderful friend and supporter of Christ Church. And so, Ben, would you please bring Bishop Provenzano on? Okay. Hi, Bishop. How are you doing?
Father Sunil, how are you? It's great to see your face and hear your voice.
Yes, especially since we've been playing with this technology a little bit, and it's kind of difficult at times.
Well, it's only difficult for those of us who are too old to learn new tricks.
I was thinking about it. I have this wonderful picture of you, and we posted it all over Facebook. And I said, "There goes a handsome bishop. He doesn't. You don't get old."
You're very generous, Father Sunil. You're absolutely generous. And thank you for the team behind the scenes that made this work today. So, yeah. Sorry if I gave you some anxious moments waiting to see if I can get on this live streaming or not. But
no, not at all. You've always not at all. You don't give me any anxiety. You only calm my fears, and that's good. Even just seeing you, and I know, Bishop, that there are people who just came on board, and they're all looking forward to just seeing you and knowing that you're okay. You have a long relationship with Christ Church and our community, and we love you.
Well, as you know, Jean and I have lots of fond memories of our time in Westerly. We feel like it was the place that launched our work in the life of the church. And we count it as one of those places we call home. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to join you today in this. And also, it's been fun to watch on Facebook the kind of progression of things at Christ Church, and seeing various people's pictures and faces. It was nice to see that a couple of those old choir members got their hair cut finally. So it was really very interesting. But I have to say that it's a joy to be able to share a few minutes with you and to even laugh. As you know, we are in the epicenter of this pandemic here on Long Island. My diocese includes Brooklyn and Queens, Nassau and Suffolk. Queens has been really the epicenter of the pandemic here in the city of New York. And our diocese owns and operates a hospital in Far Rockaway, in which we serve a community of mostly poor people. About 88% of the care we give is Medicare, Medicaid. And our hospital, as a safety net hospital, was completely inundated with COVID-19 patients. And as early as this morning, received a report from our CEO that things are beginning to level off and calm down. But it's been a really difficult time for the diocese to support the ministry and care for people in Far Rockaway. We serve about 330,000 people on that peninsula. We turned entire floors. Our whole pediatric floor became an ICU unit in order to care for the volume of people who were seeking help. And so it's good to laugh today. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that.
I mean, sometimes I think in the midst of this type of challenge, right, it's good to have people that we can find joy to help us find inspiration to kind of meet the challenges. I know, like, I mean, today, right before our conversation, I had to, I was scheduling a funeral that I'm doing tomorrow. And one of the persons was a longtime vestry member of ours. It's her and her husband passed away one day after each other, and I'm talking to their daughter, and you know, I want to be there. I want to be able to do what I normally do, which is kind of, you know, hold their hands, sit with them, talk with them, pray with them, and so I couldn't do that before their death. And even now, when we're scheduling the funeral that I'm going to be doing, it's going to be, you know, less than 25 people in Connecticut. It's going to be a very small gathering together. But I'm in the midst of it. I'm saying, you know, let's also remember to celebrate their life 1 year from now when we do the memorial service. We'll you know, pull out all the brakes when this challenge is over. And I'm just wondering, with your diocese, you're in the epicenter of one of the most challenging situations in the country. And how are your priests? And I know that your priests are wonderful because are encouraged by you. What do you say to them, Bishop?
Well, I've been asking them to focus on trying to take care of both their physical well-being and their spiritual well-being. We have tried over the last decade, didn't know that we were preparing for this kind of thing, asking our clergy to live a rule of life in which out of their deep prayer and their spiritual lives would come the reservoir. From the reservoir, they could then minister in tough situations. And we had no idea that we were preparing for this kind of thing. I've had now 3 priests who have, actually a 4th priest now has contracted COVID-19. We've had one death of a rector in Jackson Heights, Queens. Really wonderful priest who, fairly young guy who succumbed to the virus. And the clergy in the diocese are stalwart. They're moving through this. They're trying to keep their people safe. They're trying to do the things that are right in terms of cooperating with state and local government, but recognizing that they can't be there with their people. They're absorbing all of the pain of the loss in congregations. One of our congregations in Brooklyn has lost over 20 members in the last 5 weeks, all to COVID-19. And the rector there is going and doing the graveside prayers with a couple of family members, everyone masked and gloved, no one touching each other, with the understanding that in the coming year, those will all be then memorial services that will happen in just in that one parish in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
25.
So it's a difficult time. So the question you asked was about encouragement. I'm asking everyone to be diligent about their prayer time. We do a Zoom morning prayer and Compline from the base of the diocesan center in our cathedral every day, and everyone can sign in, and so we can pray together. We can see each other across the diocese. We're trying to provide through pastoral care. I have a canon on my staff who's in charge of pastoral care for clergy. She stays in touch with clergy, particularly if they think they're having a really difficult time, to kind of focus in on how we might be able to provide some services to them and to provide some support. But it really is. I mean, it's one of those moments in our history in which, as my chancellor said to me several weeks ago, Bishop, if we can't do this, then all that stuff you guys preach is just not for real.
Yeah.
And so we're doing it, and we're going to try to take care of people as they come through. We have put aside, and I know this will sound like lunacy to you as a rector of a parish, we've put aside the financial costs of what all this is doing to us, just trying to put people first, recognizing that we've got real needs and we'll take care of those needs, and we'll deal with, and of course we have people behind the scenes planning for this, but we'll deal with the financial implications of this when we're able to kind of pick our heads up again and take a deep breath. So it's become a really difficult but grace-filled time. People in my diocese now are getting tired of hearing me say this across various venues, but this is a time for the church just to be the church, to do what the church does. And what we do is raise up before God's people issues of concern, their needs, trying to make them feel like they've got the support, that their faith life is going to be a place that they can rest in as they face the various struggles. And while we're doing all of that and trying to be supportive, also providing them with some of the material needs that they need to meet the days ahead. It's not been a very easy time, as you know.
Yeah, no, and Bishop, I think that's a message. I think that's a message that continues to be needed to be heard. And so I'm sure that you may think that you're repeating it over and over again, but I'm sure that it inspires your priests and your people. And I know even now when I hear it, it's a wonderful message. And you're right. I'm a rector. I'm concerned about finances, but we have people who are at Christ Church. We have brilliant people who are concerned about finances. But I feel the same way. I agree with you. If we do ministry, it's all investment in the future. We're building the church. The other thing is I've been noticing in terms of this in our experience here is that we've been so tied to the building. We've been so tied to the building. And so whenever Westerly, our Christ Church is gorgeous, right? And it's right in the middle of town. It's like on a little hill, and it brings light to our community. And, when you think of Christ Church, you think about the building. Now, when I think about Christ Church, it's the people. It's the people. It's what we do. And I think that's what you're saying too, right?
Yeah, Father Sunil, I think one of the things that is emerged out of this is that we're going to have to be clearer moving forward that the church is the people of God. The buildings are really wonderful. We We're enshrined in them at times. They become location. That's important, particularly in our denomination, that the incarnational nature of that we come to a place, it has substance. We take care of it. It is all expressive of our faith life. But at the end of the day, it's the people of God. And to watch how people have adjusted.
Yes.
A little snapshot. We every morning at 8:45 we have morning prayer in the cathedral, and normally I get over to the cathedral, and the members of our diocesan staff will gather. A small portion of them will come to morning prayer, and so there's usually about a dozen, maybe 14 people in the chapel for morning prayer. Today, for morning prayer, there were over 70 people who signed in on Zoom for morning prayer. And what I've said to the dean is that when we can begin to gather together again in person, we're going to have to do both. We're going to have to find a way to allow those people who couldn't physically get there anyway to keep joining in our prayer life and be strengthened by being able to begin their day that way. Because we won't go back to normal. I guess that's the other thing is that we've discovered is that everyone says, well, someday, we're going to get back to normal. I think normal's our history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what's going to happen now moving forward is going to be a very different church that's going to emerge. We certainly have reprioritized all of the things that we were also worried about before February and March.
Yeah.
And I think it changes our mission. It changes the way we approach Jesus' mission.
Yeah.
Because we want to be inclusive of all of these people. So I think it's a very interesting time. I will say something to you as the rector of Christ Church. We've been having these conversations in the diocese here that singing, choral singing, is going to be a real issue. And I keep hearing from our hospital people, Bishop, at all costs, do not have people in close proximity to each other singing out. And I immediately think of the various choral groups and choirs that we have in the diocese, and I think about the rich tradition of music at Christ Church, and how will that adapt itself? I think it's a very exciting moment, a bit challenging, I suspect.
It is. It's interesting because we have George Kent, who is Bunky, and I'm hoping that he actually watches some of this. I did get into a staff meeting where he actually was engaging with us, and what we do is, it's interesting because we have George playing a prelude, a postlude, and an offertory piece. We have his student Andrew Howell, who is now the director of Chorus of Westerly. He actually leads us in singing. Bishop, and then after, I think and then he leads us in singing. We put the music up on the screen, and we're hoping that people participate and sing. But we're the choir, that 35 member choir that we have not had them gather together for now 2 months, and luckily we're getting all of those. We're getting a lot of people who are following us and engaging in ministry through our virtual ministry, and so we're building that community. But it is an adjustment to us. It is a great adjustment.
Yeah. And in the challenge and the crisis is the opportunity for God's grace to provide us some direction. It'll be the place in which the church can grow in its ministry. We just don't know what it is yet. And I think for us to be able, as church leaders, to be able to say, yeah, things are going to change and things are not exactly going to be the way they were, and we're not even sure where God's taking us in this. And yeah, we can put some plans together. We can pray about it. We can, do some projecting out. But at the end of the day, you and I didn't know that we could ever do this several months ago, and
That's right.
here we are.
Yeah.
So who knows what can happen?
It reminds me of that, when Jesus is commissioning his disciples, and that wonderful passage where, actually in Acts chapter 1 verse 8, where he's about to be lifted up, ascension, and then he goes, and basically, you go, and you'll be given the power to witness in Judea and Galilee and all over the world, right? And then I'll go ahead of you. I'll be ahead of you. I'll be one step. I'll be there before you even get there. In other words, and I think that's the thing. I mean, that's our faith. I think right at this moment, we don't know where it's going to go, but we know that God's there already.
And so, one of the things that I'm really encouraged with, just building on that piece of scripture, that innately the faithful people of God already know that. They're I think people are less anxious than we are.
Yeah.
We're charged with the responsibility of kind of organizing things and getting things in the right perspectives and all of that. And to kind of plan ahead, I'm sure someone has already said to you, well, that's your job, Father. You got to figure out how we're going to do this. That's what we pay you the big bucks for. I get that all the time. But in actuality, what I'm witnessing is that a lot of our clergy are being able to function in this reality and be a bit calmer by the reaction of the people of God, who are saying, you know what, this is really, it's not ideal. We don't want it to be this way all the time, but it's okay. We're going to be okay. We're in communication with each other. We're trying to take care of each other. I think there are some learnings in this. Again, the crisis creates the opportunity for God's grace to be at work in us in ways that we might have even resisted.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for that. I'm sure you, like so many, have had some very anxious moments about how much longer is this going to go on, and when are we going to get people back into those buildings? And in the meantime, ministry is happening. God's people are being cared for.
You know what my anxious moment was we're preparing the service, and in March, right after St. Patrick's Day, we had a big celebration planned with this, and then Bishop Nisley, Bishop Nisley, of course, well, and wonderful, intelligent man. He calls and he says, look, you're gonna have to readjust. And then the very next, and we're still wondering what we're going to be doing. And so we took the step immediately to cancel the service the next Sunday, and then start using Facebook online and doing Instagram, and started to lean in on this stuff. And the anxious moment was, what's going to happen? And then the anxious moment for me right now sometimes is like, are people going to continue to connect? And the thing is, every time I have that thought, the next moment I see evidence of the joy that this ministry is bringing, and how people are connecting. I mean, how many people have just connected to us right now on this phone, on this call, on this interview? People are saying, Bishop, we're hoping, you're praying that you're okay, that you're safe. You're all through the comments. They've been doing that, and they just love to connect, and that keeps me buoyed and up. The other thing is also, I love that crisis creates crisis is creating something. I think crisis allows us to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
meet the need of the moment. And that's what, I mean, this creativity is from God, I think.
Here we sit in between Pentecost Sunday and Trinity Sunday. And I think about this. No one would have wanted this to happen
No,
at all.
Amen.
But there's a Pentecost moment in this. There is a realization of the Holy Spirit doing something that we could never have imagined. And so, the crisis creates an opportunity. We could stay locked away, or we can find ways of embracing the technology. I mean, in a lot of ways, the technology has allowed us to go back into our own history. We're gathering people because we can't celebrate the Eucharist. We're gathering people in small prayer groups, in home prayer groups, in doing morning prayer and preaching and exchanging opportunities for formation in ways that we abandoned decades ago. Because everything had to be programmed and everything had to be in the church buildings. And, we failed 20 years ago as an entire church, not just the Episcopal Church. We failed 20 years ago to embrace the idea of doing small home groups for study and formation. And now that's what's working. That's what's keeping us together. Are people doing those kinds of things? And then, of course, with Trinity Sunday coming, the opportunity for us to be involved in the love of God and that kind of divine dance of the Holy Trinity, in which we're invited in to relationship with God. And so I keep going back to what's the thing that's going to sustain us. I think it's deep prayer. I think it's finding our way back into a regularity with the study of Scripture, the study of our own tradition, so we don't lose a sense of, well, who are we as Episcopalians? With all due respect to your friends across the street, we're not Congregationalists and we're not Methodists and we're Episcopalians. We have an Anglican tradition that moves us in certain ways. Interestingly, and I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but the Anglo-Catholic tradition of our diocese here in Long Island has been bolstered by this crisis. You know that the late 19th century and the early 20th century movement of Anglo-Catholicism in the Anglican Communion provided social justice action out of a deep prayer and liturgical life that has sustained this diocese here for 152 years. It is how we operate. Our cathedral is the cathedral of the Incarnation, and the kind of the subtext is, therefore, everything that is created of God is our work and our business. The church has got to be involved in all this. We spend lots of time and lots of money doing things like community action and all that as outward and visible expressions of the love of God. The theme around the diocese was, you can't just preach the gospel, you have to live it. If we're not taking care of people in the streets in Brooklyn and Queens and Nassau and Suffolk, then we have no business trying to get them into church to preach to them. And so there's been this kind of movement. This crisis has put that to the test in ways that I could never have imagined. Parish clergy who weren't having to pay attention to what was happening in their building. They had to get very creative about social media and prayer times and worship times for Sundays, volunteered as orderlies in our diocesan hospital.
Wow.
Because people were being overrun. I mean, there were just too many patients. We had doctors moving beds and moving patients, so we needed volunteers, and clergy started volunteering to do that, all out of a sense of, I can prepare for liturgy and I can get ready to preach and all, but here's something very tangible, incarnational that we can do to help people, and so it's been really a very sad time. I mean, we are surrounded. I mean, we're surrounded by people dying and people being sick. And if that wasn't bad enough. Now we've got all this rioting that's going on, and all of the things that are happening in relationship to the death of Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. And so it's crisis upon crisis. It's been challenge and opportunity for the church to be the church.
I would just one more thing I think is really that helps me. I mean, all of what you're saying is beautiful. The one thing I think I would just want to add is just being in relationship to people like you, with other Christians to help each other along, and reminded of it, all that you have been just saying, Bishop. I mean, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I know you, and I'm so glad that Christ Church has been an important part of your ministry. I'm so glad that we have you as a bishop in Long Island, but also in the national church. I'm also glad that we have priests in your diocese who are willing to do what's necessary to help the gospel be proclaimed in action. I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
Father Sunil, thank you. And thanks for the encouragement and the support. And know that you are all in our prayers. Christ Church, you specifically, and the people who have come even since our departure from there in the late 1980s, that we hold you in prayer. You're on my prayer list all the time. And so I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to have this exchange with you. I really appreciate the fact that the technology worked. So
it's great to see you.
And in the context in which we all find ourselves, let's just keep praying and supporting one another. I think that's really important. And recognize that it's going to get harder before it gets easier. It's going to be a very unusual summer for all of us, I suspect.
Yeah.
Well,
Bishop, thank you again.
Thank you. Keep praying. Keep safe. Send our love to everyone in Westerly, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you all soon.
We've got to get you back here again.
Yeah, well, we'll have to come up with some really colorful masks.
Yes. All right. God bless you.
God bless, brother. Thank you again.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Again, thank you, folks, for joining us. Again, another example of a person who's doing great ministry out in the world, someone who's proclaiming the light of Christ to the world, and in a hard and difficult time. And that allows us to know, I'm hoping it inspires us to continue to pass our own light, the light of hope and of joy, to the people around us. There's a lot of hate and a lot of anger going around. Let's pass on love and joy and hope, and our world will be transformed. Let's end with this prayer that we usually do for our world. The Lord be with you. Jesus Christ, you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevent nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, teachers and students, pastors and counselors, and our caregivers. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve the Lord and spread the light of God. Thank you.